Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of A Nation United, Rock, Flag, and Eagle. And in this episode, we will sim through Season 3. But before then, we have a couple of things to discuss. We left the last episode with a couple of question marks, and taking those, your answers, your feedback in general, we have a couple of things that we have to get to. First and foremost, before I go to the free agent list, just to save a little bit of time, we have signed Casey DeSmith. Of course, he's a Penguins goaltender in real life at the moment. He will be the backup to Jake Ottinger. John Gillies will be traded, which is a tough thing for me to do with him being a New England guy, but Hayden Hockey will be the backup goaltender this year. And of course, that way, Jake Ottinger can be the starter in the AHL and hopefully develop that much more. The other two things I wanted to talk about are intertwined in a pretty big way. The first topic of discussion is Jack Eichel and how he kind of lacks a Robin to his Batman. There is no Ovechkin-Backstrom pairing. It's just Jack. And not to say that Tuck, Milano, Galchenyuk, and Donato are bad, but they're not that elite level pairing. We've seen what a Tarasenko can do when he's with the Stastny and a Jaden Schwartz. We don't exactly have that dynamic, and we may not end up getting that dynamic with the team that we currently have. The problem with getting a player of that caliber, of course, is the trade values. That brings me to the second topic. Anders Lee and Ryan McDonough are currently free agents. Needless to say, we have room for a second-line player, just in general, a top six player, which very well could be Anders Lee. We either send down or flat-out trade Miles Wood. Anders Lee takes that spot. He's still not, the Ovechkin-Backstrom caliber player, but he would help out as Bellows, Mishmash, and Gaudette run the fourth line. In order to trade for a player like Eichel, or to trade for a player the caliber of Eichel to help out Eichel on that top line, we'd have to move a player of relatively high caliber on defense. And since we have acquired Charlie McAvoy, that means Noah Hannafin has become a little bit expendable. Still has a solid chance of becoming a top two defenseman, but is he going to rival Trouba and McAvoy? Probably not. Although you could argue, maybe Trouba's worth trading and we run with Hannafin and McAvoy. Regardless, the thought of trading either Trouba or Hannafin to help find the Robin to Eichel's Batman, and then we sign McDonough to replace whoever we trade, that works out pretty good. I'd say that works out pretty damn well, honestly. Whether or not we were to move, say, a Galchenyuk, we could move Donato, we could move one of these two guys as well in that deal to help make room for Anders Lee. We have options, but again, the biggest problem here is just the trade values and what a player's trade value actually is when the team doesn't want to move them. And that, of course, is our biggest issue. Now, Casey Mittelstadt's name, of course, continues to be thrown around. The problem is, in terms of him being an Eichel partner-level player, like an Eichel-type player, he's simply not. Despite the 93 offensive awareness, I can't help but feel he's going to be more of a Bergeron type. That said, really good offensive player, but he's not going to be the 70-point guy. That's just my assumption, because that's not how Bergeron-style players perform in this game, typically. So Mittelstadt, as it is, isn't at that level, not to say that he wouldn't be a solid addition. There's also the thought of trading, like a Clayton Keller type, but you see what his value is and the fact they don't want to trade him. He's nearly at a full bar trade value. It's the same thing for even a Brock Besser on Chicago. It's going to take a lot to get one of these players when the team doesn't want to move them, which means we could just settle for acquiring somebody like Jack Hughes. Now, to do so, we are, and I've tested this out, we are looking at a Noah Hannafin and first-round pick next year situation to get a player the caliber of Jack Hughes. We get him for the future. We tack on Miles Wood in the deal, or just send him down. We don't even have to. Sign Anders Lee, and Ryan McDonagh with the money that we have, and we essentially turn a Hanifin and a first into Jack Hughes, Anders Lee, and Ryan McDonagh, which does in fact seem like a pretty decent deal. The only way, again, that we get anywhere close to a Keller, Besser type player is if we give up Trouba. The question is, can Noah Hanifin become a Trouba level player in 3 years, or is it just worth keeping Trouba and McAvoy as that 1-2 punch? Will Butcher's not going to get us anybody all that useful. It's Hanifin and a first for Jack Hughes, or we use Trouba to try and go out. I mean, it's going to be Trouba and more to get a Besser type. We run McDonagh and Butcher on the second pairing, Hanifin on the top pairing with McAvoy, and we hope that Hanifin can develop into a 90-plus player. Whether or not he can do that, again, I am honestly not sure. That is the decision that I have to make right now if I agree with the thought of signing Ryan McDonagh, which, despite him being 30 years old, it does kind of make sense to sign a player of that caliber and use Noah Hanifin or Trouba's trade value to make something happen. I got to admit, I'm leaning towards trading Hanifin and a first for Jack Hughes, and then signing McDonagh and Anders Lee. The problem is, we're facing a lot of pressure of having to be a good team this year because we do not want players to reject re-signing because they aren't happy with our place in the standings. I can't guarantee that a Trouba for Keller move or that a Trouba for Besser move is even going to go through. And you know what? Let's just say we want to target Besser instead. Even though, it would be smarter to target Besser anyway with them being a Western Conference team. Let's say that we want to target Brock Besser. He put up 31 goals last year, 39 the year before. A proven goal-scoring machine, even though Anders Lee, in fairness, over the past 2 seasons, I double-checked, has put up 60 goals in the past 2 years. That alone will not go through. We're talking about Trouba and more for Besser. A 90 overall defenseman and a pick, as opposed to Hanifin. Regardless, we have to give up quite a bit. Is Trouba and a second worth it, essentially, for Besser and McDonagh? Probably. But is Hanifin and a pick worth it for Jack Hughes and Ryan McDonagh? I'm going to say yes as well. So we have that question of Anders Lee and McDonagh. I mean, one way or another. It's just, do we want to get Jack Hughes and get the help for the future? Or do we want to get the help for now and have to give up somebody even better? Do we want Hanifin or do we want Trouba? Trouba means better forward now in a way. I don't know. And this is the problem. I hadn't made up my mind on this. I genuinely don't know if this second round, even with the second round pick, if this will go through. Let's find out. No. Not sufficient at all. Case in point. Am I willing to give up Trouba and a first for Besser? No. Am I willing to give up Hanifin and a first for someone like Jack Hughes? I think so. Because I'm not as confident in Hanifin becoming a top-line player, even if we give him that ice time. And yes, I know Brady Tkachuk's there as well. I'd be looking at trading Max Jones, though, because I would have to open up a roster spot for, I'd have to open up a spot on the third line, which, I don't know, you could argue would be worth it. You could argue that could be worth it to bring in Brady Tkachuk. He only put up 30 points last year, though. We already have his brother. I want Jack Hughes on this team. He was meant to be on this team, and we're going to make it happen, which means we are pretty much committing to signing Ryan McDonagh, and Anders Lee. Noah Hannafin's on his way out. I'm going to see if instead of a first-round pick, I can give up a second and just pile on the fourth rounders. It might be possible. I'm going to lean towards probably not. But let's see if this can go through at all. And we'll try to bring Jack Hughes into the team. Yeah, it's still not close. It's going to take that first rounder more than likely. Question is, our first rounder next year or one of the picks this year? What about the Detroit pick this year? Just a bit low. I'm willing to give up the Detroit pick this year so we at least have a first rounder next year. Is the fifth round pick enough? No, it is not. Let's just keep adding those later picks. We'll go for 2 sixth rounders. Is that enough? No, it is not. Damn you, Pittsburgh. You've screwed us over so many times. Just please let me have Jack Hughes on the team. I am begging you. 2 fourths and a fifth. It'll go through. Noah Hannafin, a first, 2 fourths, and a fifth for essentially for Jack Hughes, Anders Lee, and Ryan McDonagh. Worth it. Jack Hughes, welcome to the team. We will go best rosters for the moment. We will sign Anders Lee for the top 6. We will sign Ryan McDonagh to immediately replace Noah Hannafin. No reason to really bring in Drew Doughty just because of the money he's going to be looking for. So McDonagh for 1 year at 3.2. And I know it's only for 1 year, but we can, of course, look to work with them. We'll also bring in Anders Lee for 3.2. Noah Hannafin, one of our bigger draft picks. Didn't think I'd see him become expendable. But the power play that we made for Charlie McAvoy changed a lot of things about this team, as Casey DeSmith has accepted that contract offer. As far as scouting, let's go to the U.S. Forwards for 6 weeks. McDonagh and Lee are both here. Let's get a look, as we are up to champion team status as opposed to contenders. Let's get a look at what this team's looking like. So Schmaltz again will be sent down. We'll call up McDonagh. And then when it comes to forwards, we'll send down Hughes for Anders Lee. Hughes will go back to junior, which is fine by me. And Miles Wood will be sent down. So the new team is shaping up to be Lee and Eichel. And again, Anders Lee, you look at that shot, you look at that offensive awareness, he might provide that 1-2 punch that we were talking about. I'm not sure how well he and Tuck will work together on the same line, and to be honest, I'm tempted to break them up. I could put Eichel on the wing, and we could go with Galchenyuk, Milano, or Donato. Milano has the second best shot. Donato's isn't bad. In terms of playmaking, it could be Milano, Galchenyuk, Tuck, Donato, Eichel. I mean, Donato is a slightly better center than Eichel, too. I'm willing to try that to start the season. Lee, Donato, Eichel, Milano, Galchenyuk, Tuck. We can switch it around if we need to. Tufte, Brown, and Jones. Bellows, Mishmash, and Gaudette. On defense, it's still Trouba and McAvoy, McDonagh, and Butcher. Now on that second pairing. So, I mean, technically we got a 2-point improvement with McDonagh. I mean, again, with Will Butcher, the trade for Jack Hughes wouldn't have worked. And then we have Chris and Belpedio, and the hope is that certain players are okay with being in the AHL. So there we have Hayden Hockey, and actually I can go trade John Gillies right now before I forget. We'll go trade him. It doesn't really matter what we get back for him. Although I gotta be honest, I have now one too many forwards. So basically I gotta decide between keeping Miles Wood. He has a little bit of value though, so I'm gonna get rid of him for that reason. And we'll add Gillies to the deal as well. And let's see what we can get. To be honest, I'm leaning towards draft picks. So Anaheim, they don't want both. Is there a team that wants both that's not projected to be that good? That is my question. Otherwise, we'll just start looking for rebuilders like Anaheim, who want John Gillies. Are you willing to trade picks as rebuilders? You are. How about a second, a third, and a fourth, just to test the waters? Take out the fourth, second, and a third. All right, so the second, how about the second, fourth, and fifth from Anaheim? Second and a fourth. Just the second. I'm shocked that was rejected. I thought we would have had it. Oh, Tampa? Lightning don't want to make a deal. Anybody else here? A lot of hopefuls, not that many rebuilders. Wow, Anaheim's pick is with the Islanders. The Islanders are going to be rebuilt quite quickly. Dallas? They do want to move the pick. Let's try a second and a sixth from Dallas. What about just a second? Still no? I'm willing to add minor picks into this. I mean, all we have left is Toronto's first, 2 sixths, and a seventh. So we'll add our fourth round pick next year. Still no? Come on, man. How about a fifth round pick as well? Alright, well, we're not getting a half-decent second. Let's focus on hopefuls now, I suppose. Winnipeg, it won't work. Toronto, they don't have the space. Who has the contract spots? Ottawa. They don't want to trade their second. New York are okay with trading their second. How about a second, a fourth, and a sixth from the Rangers? Just the second and fourth, just the second. Shit. Alright, well, I guess we're going to have to settle for a third round pick here, which is a little bit disappointing. Unless this goes through, and it did! Never mind. Well, there we go. We got the Rangers' second round pick. I will take it. So, Miles Wood and John Gillies have been dealt. Of course, we don't really have space for them down in the AHL. So it makes sense as Doggo is on the move. That's always good. Jump cut. Alright, and we're good. So let's get this lineup sorted one last time. It's going to be Fox and Borgen, Ference and Hughes. Then in the AHL, how do we want to set this up? To be honest, I don't know, because we have Jimmy Hayes and Glendening. It's a weird setup. Actually, here, let's keep Jimmy Hayes there. So I'm thinking Norris, Hurley, Hayes, Yamamoto, Paling, and Bracco. That's not bad. And as far as the AHL goes, I mean, it's not a major concern. Who plays center here? Pitlick, Achari. Let's set it up like that. That works. So the AHL is good to go. Paling, Yamamoto, and Bracco, all really capable of NHL minutes. Fox and Borgen as well. We'll have to keep an eye on their development. But the top six looking improved. What kind of damage can Anders Lee do for us? Again, Noah Hannafin is out. We have Ryan McDonough. And in the system, in terms of a high-level prospect, we have Jack Hughes. That may just be the key for us. With Jack Hughes now being a part of this franchise, 75 overall at 18 years old. With all of that taken care of, let the simming begin. We will sim a couple of months into the season, and then I'll worry about potentially re-signing whoever I can here early on. As far as the contract situation goes, it could be a little bit of trouble, and needless to say, if we are a worse team than expected, I'll be looking to make deals around the deadline, maybe even shipping both McDonough and Anders Lee out of town. We'll see. It's all up in the air. You never know how the EA Sim will go, but fingers crossed at this point that this team does as well as they probably should, and as you think they would on paper. But like I said, you can never know for sure with how this game works. Case in point, we have a 6-6 record through the opening month of the season. And you know what? I want to take that early look now. I'm a little bit paranoid. Let's take a look at the contracts and see what we are dealing with. But again, champions team status, it's not always a guarantee, but it's certainly nice to look at. So what are we dealing with here in terms of expiring contracts, goaltenders? We're going to have to re-sign Ottinger, which makes sense. We have $33 million to work with. Ottinger does not want to re-sign, so we're looking at about $2 million for him, but he'll be at backup level. So that's not a very big deal, although I can drop that down to 1 year and sign him at 1.5, so I'm cool with taking care of that already. DeSmith is a rental for this year. McAvoy's an RFA, so I wouldn't necessarily be worried about bringing him back. No word yet from McDonough, Belpedio, or Chris. Fox is going to want a 1 year deal. Does he want to come back? Yes, he does. All right, I'm going to try to worry about getting him re-signed as soon as possible. Basically, whoever I can re-sign now, I'm going to take advantage of that, and hopefully we don't run into problems later on. Schmaltz, I don't care about. He's not going to make it. And William Borgen, we need to save every penny that we can. That's a 935. He is willing to re-sign, so that's a 950 for Borgen. None of these guys are willing to talk extension yet. Galchenyuk is. And the cheapest he'll sign for, oh boy. Yeah, money-wise, this could get rough. It really could. 5,206 for Galchenyuk, although in fairness, this season, he's making $7 million. So while it looks bad, in a way, it might not be all that bad, especially if they sign for as cheap as we're hoping for. Although then if you have someone like Grant Mishmash here, who's looking for a shitload of money, it can cause some issues. 185 for him. And we have guys like Pitlick and Achari, where it's not that big of a deal. Corrali as well. So the majority of our guys aren't looking to negotiate right now. Like I said, there's a chance that we could be worse this year than we are expecting. And if that's the case, if we're in danger of losing anybody for free, they get dealt at the deadline. I mean, if I'm not 100% certain that I'm going to be able to keep all of this team together, and if we're not looking like a playoff team, we'll make the moves we have to make. But in terms of setting this team up for success this season, as Ottinger has signed, Mishmash, Borgen, and Fox have all accepted. In terms of setting this team up for success, Galchenyuk's back as well. We've done as best we can. I mean, sacrificing Noah Hannafin to acquire Jack Hughes and to make room as to where it makes sense to sign Ryan McDonough as well. Like I said, I think it was the right move to make. However, our record right now is certainly concerning. Very much concerning. At 12-12-1 as we hit November 30th again. And now December 1st. Well, let me take a look at the standings. What's our situation? We are, in fairness, only 2 points back. So we're still in it. We are very much still in it. I do want to take a look at the Lions to see if there's anything we have to change. In terms of negotiations, is anybody willing to talk at this point? Schmaltz is, but again, I don't care. So there's nobody else we can worry about talking to right now. So we'll hold off on that. Again, we have just about $5 million in cap space this season, which seems impossible given some of the players we have, but it's worked out quite well. Eichel at 20 points in 26 games isn't too bad. My question is, Anders Lee, what's your goal scoring total? He's not the goal scorer of the line. That's kind of what we got you for, Anders, and you're not proving to be the goal scorer of the line. As it is, Milano's really struggling. All right. Let's go with... Wow, I'm kind of shocked Anders Lee is struggling that much in the goal scoring department. I know Eichel's putting up some points on the wing, but I'm going to change it up. I'm going to have Lee, Eichel, Milano, Donato, Galchenyuk, Donato, Tuck. And of course the bottom six stays the same. They're all still fourth liners and third liners by title. So Trouba and McAvoy have done all right. That second pairing's done all right. And the third pairing, I mean, point-wise, they've been pretty disappointing, particularly Belpedio as an offensive defenseman. But I was expecting the plus-minus to be just brutal for them, and that's not the case. Hellebuck with a 921, Hayden Hockey with a 919. So the goaltending's been pretty solid, which kind of explains why we have the record that we do. Jeremy Bracco already has 16 assists. That is unreal. Fox has put up 7 points. And how's Ottinger doing? Still a 77 at the moment. He has a 930 in 18 appearances with 4 shutouts. So Jake Ottinger's doing very well with the Monsters. So we will continue on here. I'm thinking January 1st is when we will start negotiations again, just to give us plenty of time to maneuver if we have to, heading into the deadline. But hopefully we can start stringing together the majority of wins. December is going to be a very big month for us, one way or another. And it's, in a way, it's still settling in that we just traded Noah Hanifin. But like I said, the second that we acquired Charlie McAvoy, Noah Hanifin's situation here changed. I know that debate is going to be there as to whether or not I should have used Trouba to go out and acquire somebody, but I'm making a judgment call based on how I feel Noah Hanifin will progress. Right or wrong, I made what I felt was the right call at the time. Whether or not that was the best call, who knows? And I know, too, one thing I haven't touched upon in this episode is the thought of trading Connor Hellebuck. But again, for the reason of me being fearful of players saying, nope, we're bad, I don't want to sign here, I need him. Because without him, we'd have a Keith Kincaid type in goal. That certainly wouldn't work out for us. Now, we are in a 5-team tie with 42 points. So the Metro Division is a mess right now, aside from the Washington Capitals, which have a little bit of separation. In terms of negotiations, is anybody willing to talk? I certainly hope so. The sooner I can get an idea on these contracts. All right, more people are willing to talk now, so that's good. In terms of goaltending, again, we're fine. Defense, all right, we have answers from everybody. So McAvoy and McDonough are willing to stay. Belpedio and Chris are thinking that they want out. Tuck and Bracco are willing to stay. Lee, Milano, Tufte, Donato, Paling, and Gaudette might be trouble, but for the most part, we're looking good. So McAvoy is actually the last one that I'm going to negotiate with, just because, again, he is an RFA. But we do have $25 million to work with. The cheapest that McDonough will sign for is 4.8. I'm willing to sign him until he's 35, though. It's not that much added extra, and it gives him that little bit of term. I can drop this down to 4.25. 5 years for McDonough, and we get basically the rest of his prime. And a little bit extra. Belpedio doesn't want to sign. He's looking for a pretty big deal, so Belpedio and Chris, that could be concerning. Like I said, I'm going to hold off on McAvoy and Tuck as RFAs. Hit the wrong button. That's always good. We'll try to save the remaining RFAs for last. I think I signed a couple of guys who were RFAs previously, and you could argue I should have waited to sign them. Jeremy Bracco, cheapest you'll sign for is that $295, so I'll try to get you for the extra year. And we'll drop that down to $2,525, so solid number there. Left, Anders Lee, we might as well look to try and keep you. Cheapest you'll sign for is the $5 million for 1 year, and drop that down to $425, which is pretty solid. Riley Tufte, or Milano's an RFA. Tufte is not, so what's the cheapest Riley's willing to sign for? Just that 145 number. Try to get him for 3 years. Let's see here. So that's 125 for Mr. Tufte, and then at center, we get into a little bit of concerning territory. I can drop Donato down to under 4 mil, which is pretty solid. Can get him to 385, hopefully. And that's going to be a pretty big help, to be honest. So 385 for him. Paling doesn't want to sign. Gaudette doesn't want to sign. Hurley wants to sign, but what is he looking for? Yeah, I'm not sold on giving Hurley that amount of money right now, as he is not one of the sure thing prospects that we have. Josh Norris, I can give him the max two-way deal. That's not an issue. So we will wait to see what happens with the contracts that we have just sent out. UFA-wise, it's a little bit rough with some players who aren't looking to stay. But again, if we're not looking like we're going to be a playoff team, we're going to make changes. So let's in about 2 weeks here. We'll get some answers, of course, well before that. Donato's back. Tufte, Norris, Bracco, McDonough, Lee have all signed. So that's solid. I'm intrigued to see how much money we have left, especially, with the RFAs that we have to sign. But at least with RFAs, we can send them qualifying offers and then make moves at the start of free agency to keep them. Let's go back, check the standings, and check the contracts. We're 3 points behind Pittsburgh for a playoff spot, so we're not near the top of the division, but we are slugging it out right now for a playoff spot. So all expiring. Again, goaltenders were fine. Defense, it's McAvoy. But then we have Belpedio and Chris that I'm worried about. And then there's Tuck, Milano, and Paling. Gaudette doesn't want to re-sign. Hurley is like the last of my concerns as far as players go. We have $14 million to spend. So we should be fine. We're going to have trouble with the RFAs, but we have the qualifying offers to work with. We have the maneuverability to make sure that we hold on to them. So I can keep this team together, no doubt. Unless someone's looking for like way more money than expected. And considering I can drop Belpedio hopefully down to about 1.8, that would be pretty nice. Chad Chris is pretty much locked into what he's looking for. 3 years at 2.8. And see if that is good enough for him. And then centers, Ryan Paling was making 1.2. I should be able to drop that to 1, or it'll go up to 1.8, which isn't too crazy. Adam Gaudette, hopefully 1.5 works for him. And like I said, I'm not that worried about Hurley. He's the last UFA that I'm worried about signing. RFA-wise, like I said, we should be okay, especially because all three of them want to re-sign. So unless I'm overlooking something here, we're in a good spot in terms of contracts. It's just, can we deliver on the ice? Gaudette accepted, Chris rejected, Paling's back, Belpedio's back. All right, so Chris was the only one who felt like I was still lowballing him on that offer a little bit. We will wait until February 1st. We are one game over 500 if you combine regulation and overtime losses. So it's still up in the air, I gotta admit. I'm just gonna double check. Like, I know WHL wise there might be some players. Let's go 4 weeks on each player type in the States one more time. And we'll see how that works out. So on February 1st, we have a 26-21-3 record. Where are we? We are 3 points back of Pittsburgh, so we're in the race, but still, there's no guarantee at all. Anders Lee, very disappointing. I got to admit, too, the reason why I was so sold on the idea of picking up Anders Lee is I ran a season of an Islanders sim on stream, and he did very well. So I'm actually shocked at how poor he's been this season. Sonny Milano as well, one of the guys looking for a big contract. He's been disappointing too. I'm going to go with Lee on the right, Galchenyuk. Actually, you know what? Let's try Lee and Tuck, 2 power forwards. Let's see how that works. And let's play Galchenyuk at center, Donato on the right. Third line, I really only care about the player roles. That's still fine. In terms of development, it's nothing too crazy. Point totals, I mean, the bottom 6 has not chipped in at all. So let's get them a different look. We'll play Gaudette at center. And let's just get this team a different look. Just by mixing up the wings. Defensively, the point totals have been there for the top pairing. Butcher and McDonough have done all right. It's just a matter of an underperforming team. The goaltending's been really solid, though, and that's what's keeping us in it. But we certainly have some offensively capable players, both on offense and defense, that simply aren't getting it done. Ryan Poehling is up to a third-line guy, which is not surprising, but he should be content where he is for the rest of the season. But in terms of, I mean, this team, again, will drastically change. It's a matter of keeping the team together this season, and then next season, for sure, we're going to be making trades. We're going to either bring in other prospects or draft picks, and that cycle will look to begin as far as constantly flipping assets, depending on who proves to be good enough. So again, we don't need the Smith, McAvoy, Chris. What's the cheapest you'll sign for? Still just that 2.7. So if I bring that up to 3 even, we'll have $9.2 million left to spend on these players. I mean, I signed Charlie McAvoy for 7.8. Look at what I'm going to be able to drop that down to. The cheapest he's willing to sign for is a 2-year deal, right? Using the 85% trick, that drops that down to 4.775. So, yeah, to get a 91 overall player at under $5 million, we're in a pretty good spot. And you know what? I'm going to sign him to that now. I'm going to sign him to that right now. And we will worry about Milano and Tuck afterwards. McAvoy on that deal isn't even fair. It's not even fair. So, thankfully, we are already in the stages of recovering from those certain players having much higher cap hits than they were supposed to, just because of the way the fantasy draft works. So after this deal, it'll just be Hurley, Milano, and Tuck, I do believe, who are unsigned heading into next year. Chris accepts. McAvoy accepts. Beautiful. We beat the Sharks. We beat the Islanders. Another game against the Islanders. It's a 3-2 loss, but we win 2 out of our first 3 games to start the month. Now 28, 22, and 3. And I'm going to go double check here with both Tuck and Milano, as we are now 3 points back of Pittsburgh, but we do have a game at hand. Oh, man, and one has to wonder, I know what's missing with this team. It's just, in a way, we are trying to get us into true contention sooner rather than later. To be honest, I can trade Jordan Schmaltz if he has any sort of trade value left. And then forward-wise, it's Milano, Tuck, and Hurley. So we have $6 million available. So yeah, that's going to be a bit of an issue. What is Tuck looking to sign for? Yes, that's going to be a little bit of an issue, but the qualifying offers do work. And we're flat out not going to be able to keep Hurley. So I'm going to move Hurley before the deadline. Milano and Tuck, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to keep them. I'm willing to hold on to them and risk them going to free agency as restricted free agents, because at that point we'll get a look at player progression for this entire year. We'll be able to see who finished the season with what point totals, and we'll be able to make a difference from there. But Hurley, who's in the AHL this season, we are going to trade him 100%. So it's just a matter. Wow, Alex Tuch has been such a disappointment this year, though. Milano as well, 87 offensive awareness. You look at his shot. Very, very disappointing. Let's sim up to the deadline here. And, of course, the good news is we could sim to the deadline and just say, hey, let's sell, right? We could easily do that. The good news is most of our players are under contract for at least one more year if we were to do that. You know, if we were to get rid of even just the underperforming players, like a Tuch and like a Milano, we could survive. We'd still be in a half-decent spot. As Joel Ward is on waivers, he is not eligible to us anyway. Nor would we want to take that contract right now, given what we're trying to do and the fine line that we're currently walking to try and keep this team together. We're up to 33, 25, and 3, just a few short days before the All-Star break, or before the trade deadline. All-Star break's not a thing. We are currently in the third spot. It is going to be a war and a half to stay above Carolina, Pittsburgh, and New Jersey, and the Islanders aren't out of it either. We have 2 games at hand on Philly, and Washington's running away with it. We are in a dogfight for a playoff spot. So let's see. Again, Tuch has been very disappointing. 18 goals for Donato. 15 and 16 there. The question is, who do we bump up? Assist-wise, it's not that bad. I'm just wondering. I mean, goal-scoring-wise, it's pretty spread out. I mean, I feel like our offense has started to catch their stride a little bit. I'm just disappointed in Tuch, who, point total-wise, it has just not been there. But there's really nothing I can do about it unless I, say, like, drop a Max Jones down to the 4th line. Tufte has 13 goals. Tuch will still have power play time, right? He does. You know what? Let's try something different here. Let's drop Tuch down. We'll have Jones and Brown on a line with him. And just flat out try Riley Tufte on that line. It shouldn't work, in theory, but it might. It's worth a shot. He has 13 goals. Why not? Play him with Eichel and Anders Lee, and we'll see if it works. We'll give it a couple of games here. He was at 13 goals. To be honest, I forget the assist number, but we have 2 games left here against the Islanders and the Maple Leafs before deadline day. Let's see here. So let me scout defense again for another month. And back-to-back wins, please. No, we split those games as well. So 34, 26, and 3. I'm just going to sim to deadline day here. And we will look at the playoff situation. With a month and a half left to go, we are still in a playoff spot. Game at hand on Philly, but 8 points back. We are 2 points up on Carolina. They have a game at hand again. It is a dogfight at this point in the season. What would this team look like if we did not trade Noah Hannafin and we just signed Anders Lee? Tough call. To the point where I want to go look at the Pittsburgh Penguins, who we are in a race with. They're at 68 points. I want to see what overall Noah Hannafin is, and I want to see his point total from this season. And we'll also take a look at what Jack Hughes is looking like at this point. So Hannafin's still in 86 now, and to be honest, I feel like his value dropped a little bit. Am I mistaken there in saying his value was originally at Tkachuk Rantanen level, and now it's not? I think we got rid of the right guy at the right time. Now, the question is whether or not we should have picked up Brady Tkachuk as opposed to Jack Hughes. 24 points for Tkachuk. I don't think Tkachuk's going to be a big point getter. I just don't see it. It's just not the way. I mean, to be honest, I mean, he just seems like he's performing better than Alex Tuch, but he's in Alex Tuch category where power forwards just don't sim well. Let me take a look at what Jack Hughes is looking like now that we have the Hughes brothers. He's up to a 76, playing in junior, of course. So we'll see how it works out with him. And you see the values. I mean, Ryan McDonagh, Jesus Christ, I don't know why his value is that high. If he's a top 4 defenseman, I don't see... Wow. That's a game changer right there. In terms of being able to move somebody, he has more value than Trouba. What the hell? So needless to say, the idea of maybe packaging together an Anders Lee and a Ryan McDonagh to go out and get a Brock Besser and maybe whatever defenseman we want could work. Do they have a kind of cheap American option on defense? They have Goligoski. It's not exactly cheap, though, especially with that contract. Fuck that. Anybody? Not really. The question is, though, is our depth enough? Not that McDonagh's having a bad season, but in terms of defensive depth, if we were to go McAvoy, Trouba, Butcher, Belpedio, Chris, and Fox, would that be worth it in the short term to be able to add a Besser type? Because you see the value of Anders Lee, who, in fairness, has been getting it together lately. But then you look at someone like Alex Tuck, who I'm a little bit concerned about. He put up 31 points last year, only 18 so far this year. He seems like he's more suited for the third line as opposed to a second line role. If we look at forwards and we look at Besser, who has a year left. Besser, 14 goals, 36 assists. In terms of a goal-scoring threat, he hasn't quite been there. I'm not going to sim past the deadline because we certainly have options, and seeing what McDonagh's trade value is definitely gives us flexibility moving forward. Again, in terms of having everyone re-signed, it's just Milano and Tuck that are not currently signed, even though they will be RFAs, so we have, control of their destiny, so to speak. The biggest question is, what do we do with this team? How do we handle that newfound situation? Now, Johnny Gaudreau has a full value bar, so we'd have to give up McDonagh and more. But getting a Johnny Gaudreau might not be out of the question. Who else is here in terms of goal scoring for Americans? It's mainly just Gaudreau. You got Pacioretty. I'd rather end up with Gaudreau, who's at 30. Yeah, man, we have options. We have options. For example here, like I said, if I were to give up McDonagh and Anders Lee, I could see that going through. Do the Bruins have anybody, and they're a really good team, of course, do the Bruins have any Americans on defense? Yandel? But that contract is garbage. And then Max Gilden. So the Bruins are kind of in a rough spot defensively. That would kind of be the main question here. Is it worth... Now, again, we started off this episode by using Noah Hannafin to get Jack Hughes and then immediately replacing Hannafin by signing Ryan McDonagh. Turns out that was the right call because Hannafin's trade value has already dropped, but it was also the right call because Ryan McDonagh's trade value is through the goddamn roof. Does it make sense to move Ryan McDonagh because of that bloated trade value? Does that make sense? We call up Adam Fox to replace him. Does it make sense to take the hit in terms of defensive ability to go out and get that person who can be that true 1-2 punch with Eichel? Anders Lee hasn't been terrible this season. He's certainly picked it up as of late. The goal scoring has been pretty well spread out. But we are talking about potentially, in terms of players worth moving, I'm not necessarily sure if we want to move Alex Tuch, but we could do that. We have options. We do. And I'm going to need to put thought into this. But needless to say, there are moves that could be made here that would once again drastically change up the team, as if this episode didn't provide a good enough example of that. We're going to end it here. The next episode will either be the rest of the season and the draft, if we somehow miss out, or the rest of the season and our first round matchup. What this team will look like by the end of the regular season, though, is anyone's guess. I'm looking forward to your suggestions and feedback on what you guys think we should do for the rest of this year. You know what you can do to support the video, the channel, myself, as far as subscribing and bells and all that fun stuff. I thank you guys for the support as always, and I will see you all in the next one.